Present.
Dan Bernal, George Blumenthal,
Here.
Maria Bonneville,
Present.
Linda Boxer, Anne-Marie Deliege, Elena Flowers, Judy Gasson,
Here.
Vito Bassiani,
Here.
Pat Levitt,
Here.
Linda Malkus,
Here.
and Adriana Padilla.
Here.
Thanks very much, Judy. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Okay, the topic for today is the consideration of purchasing policy, and we have a presentation. So Raphael, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, members of the Governance Subcommittee and other members of the CIRM staff. Appreciate you all being here. We know that purchasing policies aren't as interesting as some of the other CIRM programs we have going on, but it's one of the basic building blocks of any strong compliance program. And since we hadn't looked at this since 2016, the finance and legal teams, with the advice of JT and the governance team, thought it would be a good time to take a look at it and just see if we could improve it in any way, shape, or form. And we think we're presenting a new policy that accomplishes those goals. What it does, and I'm just summarizing what's in the memo here. So again, you'll probably be familiar with some of these words and things like that, but just wanted to go over this before I toss it over to Michelle Lewis, my colleague, so she can go over a brief presentation for you. So again, the new policy removes a lot of extraneous content and operational procedures that probably just shouldn't be in a policy. We're going from something like 20 pages down to 3.5, 4 pages. It's going to focus on procurement governance and compliance, clarity, and efficiency. We're in the process of developing these standard operating procedures that will flow from the policy, but obviously we wanted to get approval from the ICOC on the policy itself before finalizing those. We think that this policy will be easier to train on, certainly easier to administer, and also it'll be easy. We think it's going to be easier for our users to comprehend, more user-friendly. What it did is we removed a whole bunch of detailed definitions to focus on procurement governance, as I touched upon earlier. We clarified contract term limits, and we by establishing a maximum term of 10 years, including extensions. We standardized the approval authority to align with financial thresholds. We revised the policy to reinforce competitive bidding and supplier diversity standards to help ensure transparency and cost effectiveness in procurement decisions. And we think this will enhance reporting and compliance requirements throughout the policy by having stricter monitoring measures that provide for better adherence and following of the contract and tracking of the contract. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle. If you don't mind, Michelle.
I don't mind. Good morning, Chair and members of the subcommittee and CIRM staff. So I'm going to share my screen. We just have a very brief PowerPoint just to showcase some of the highlights, and hopefully everyone can see that. All right. So we just wanted to highlight some of the proposed changes to the current contracting policy. We've revised and streamlined the previous policy on contracting and services of independent consultants. The new policy would be titled Purchasing Policy. The revised policy includes all purchase types and focuses on procurement governance, transparency, and efficiency. It removes the operating procedures to focus on a streamlined document with high-level policy. In conjunction with this, we will be developing operating procedures. The finance team will work with the legal team to ensure that these are proper operating procedures, and we will also develop a training for all CIRM staff. The revised policy reinforces competitive bidding and supplier diversity, while also emphasizing compliance and auditing measures. Some of the highlights of the changes are that we removed definitions from pages 1 and 2. For example, the employer to employee relationship, they're lower level in scope and they should be placed in a standard operating procedure. We removed lower level scope also from general policy and payment requirements, and those were pages 3 through 17 of the previous policy. For example, procurement contract versus purchase order. Those are more low level definitions that are more applicable in a standard operating procedure. We also removed the appendices 1 through 3 as they apply to not only do they apply to only one type of contract, but those are also documents that should be placed in a standard operating procedure. And at this point, SURM requests approval of the proposed purchasing policy.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Does anyone have any questions for Michelle? George, I think I see your hand up.
Yeah, a quick question. As I understand it, the board is being asked to approve this new policy, which has removed the procedures, the standard operating procedures from the policy itself, such that those procedures would be forthcoming at a later time. Are those procedures then under presidential directive rather than board authority, so that they will be developed internally by the staff and put in place with the approval of the president? Is that a correct statement of what we expect to happen?
I
Yes,
believe- Yes,
right, Raphael. Sorry.
that's correct.
Any other hands raised questions for either Raphael or Michelle? Okay, so would you like me to entertain a motion at this point to approve the changes to the purchasing policy?
And Judy, this is Scott. The motion would be to recommend to the full board approval of the changes.
Yes,
to the
correct.
policy.
Yes, correct.
So moved.
Thank
Second,
you. Who was the second? Sorry.
I was.
Oh, thanks, George. Okay, Scott, would you call the roll, please?
Sure, I'll just go through the formality of asking for public comment. I don't think we have any, and I don't see any. So, Kim Barrett,
Aye.
George Blumenthal,
Yes.
Maria Bonneville,
Yes.
Judy Gasson,
Yes.
Vito Bassiani,
Yes.
Pat Levitt,
Yes.
Linda Malkus,
Yes.
and Adriana Padilla.
Yes.
Great, thanks very much. The motion carries unanimously. Judy?
Okay, so we'll be able to recommend approval to the ICOC board on the 27th when we meet next. The next item on the agenda is a memo, and I'll turn it back to Raphael again.
Judy, I think that the memo is the accompanying item to the item we just had. Let me
Oh,
just-
okay, so there's nothing different in the memo.
Correct.
That was
Okay.
just for informational purposes for the subcommittee and the board, Judy, so that you can have more background on the changes and the updates.
Excellent. Okay, then. Does anyone on the committee have anything they want to comment on at this time? Anything from the members of the public?
Doesn't appear so, Judy.
Okay, well, this was a very efficient meeting, so
Yeah.
thank you to Raphael, to Scott, and to Michelle.